Every match at this level feels like life and death to you. What do you mean by that?
I think I told myself that I wasn't tired enough, and and I told this to my team that I wasn't finishing the points tired.
I'm not a type of player. No disrespect to other players in the ranking. I'm not happy to be one of the best in what I do. And you know what? I might not.
Of course, my goal is to get even higher in the ranking, to get this position as number one. But I know it's still a lot of work. It's all depends on the other players too, and yeah, definitely that's my biggest goal, next goal. So I actually didn't think about this statistic because I lost in Australia. So I think it was.
Nobody expected the Italian Open to become the tournament that changed how people viewed Alex Eala forever. On paper, the story belonged to the finalists, the champions, the veterans who had already spent years proving themselves on the biggest stages in tennis. The headlines were supposed to be about experience, about rankings, about proven greatness. And yet behind the scenes, something else was happening that almost nobody watching from home truly understood. Because while one superstar was bulldozing through the draw, defeating a Roland Garros semifinalist, surviving against a US Open champion, and overpowering a top 10 veteran, there was one match that made her entire team nervous in a way the others never did. Strangely, it wasn't against any of those established names. It was against a 20-year-old player from the Philippines who had never even won a tournament at this level before. And for a few shocking hours in Rome, Alex Eala made one of the most dangerous players in women's tennis question everything. But what she admitted after the match revealed something even bigger. Something that explains why players inside the locker room are starting to talk about her very differently now.
It is the 20-year-old sensation from the Philippines, Alex Eala, who's joining us after her 6-4 in the third set victory over Magdalena Frech out on Petrangeli. First of all, congratulations on the win. I watched that entire match. It was really kind of a symphony in three movements, right? You bageled her in the first set. She came back, won the second set 6-4, went up a break in the third, and then you turned it around and won in three. What happened in sort of the last 20-25 minutes of that match that allowed you to take control?
I think I told myself that I wasn't tired enough, and and I told this to my team that I wasn't finishing the points tired enough. So maybe the intensity went down a little bit, and I tried my best to give that little extra push every single point, and it paid off.
That extra push is something that you talked to us a little bit about in Miami. You told us on the desk in Miami that you often tell your team that every match at this level feels like life and death to you. What do you mean by that?
Well, everybody is really good at this level, and anything can happen. And I think that's a beautiful thing about tennis. But at the same time, it's a profession that really keeps you on your toes and is really high pressure because every single match is a different circumstance, it's a different situation, and sometimes one match can change a lot for you.
Most players talk about conserving energy, managing their body, surviving long tournaments. Alex Eala almost thinks in reverse. The deeper she gets into a match, the more she seems to trust exhaustion itself. She revealed something after Rome that sounded small at first, but the more you think about it, the more unusual it becomes. She said when she doesn't feel tired during a match, she immediately knows her intensity has dropped. Think about that for a second. At 20 years old, while most players are still trying to figure out how to handle pressure, she's already using physical exhaustion as a performance indicator. That level of self-awareness in real time is incredibly rare. And honestly, it's dangerous. Because players who can honestly evaluate themselves mid-match usually improve faster than everyone else around them. But what made the situation in Rome even more fascinating was the surface itself. Clay was never supposed to help Alex Eala. In fact, most analysts believed it exposed her weaknesses. Slow conditions, long rallies, heavy movement, endless patience. On paper, it should have been the exact environment where more experienced players could wear her down. Instead, something completely unexpected started happening.
Especially when you're changing seasons, or for me in clay is not my strongest surface, so every match is really a battle.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You grew up essentially at the Nadal Academy, where I believe they have a couple of clay courts,
yes.
And yet, as you point out, you've played very little as a professional on clay compared to how much you've played on hard. Are you starting to fall in love with the clay? Is it a work in progress? How are you digging it now?
Of course, I'm starting to build that relationship, especially at this level, because I've competed in clay definitely many times growing up, but playing as a professional obviously is a different game, I think. This is my first season where I've really done kind of these high level tournaments. So I did the 500 in Linz, 500 in Stuttgart, and then straight into the thousands, and then Roland Garros, of course. So I'm finding my footing, and I know that I can do well. I'm a much better player physically, mentally than I was last year. And we've really been working hard, my team and I. So I'm really happy with how I played this match, and hopefully, the things we've been working on will reflect.
This was actually Alex Eala's first true high-level clay season as a professional. Most casual fans completely missed that detail. They saw the academy background and assumed she had years of elite clay experience already built in. But the reality was almost the opposite. Before this stretch, she had barely spent meaningful time competing in major professional clay tournaments. That changes everything about how her performances should be viewed. Suddenly those difficult matches become more impressive. Suddenly the resilience makes more sense. Suddenly the uncomfortable movement patterns, the long physical exchanges, the emotional swings, they all become part of a player learning in real time against world-class competition. And what makes the story even more fascinating is the people around her. Training around Rafa Nadal's system. Working regularly with Tony Nadal. Being immersed in one of the most mentally demanding tennis environments in the world. That kind of environment changes how players think about suffering. It changes how they process adversity. It changes how they respond when momentum turns against them. Which is exactly why Rome felt different. Because this didn't look like a young player simply getting hot for 1 week. It looked like someone beginning to understand how dangerous she could actually become.
Can, keep working on it, then she's gonna get a lot of 3 points out of it. Honestly, I feel like today was the worst conditions for my game. Very wet and heavy, which I really hate. Indian ones always plays fast and hot, and it's great because I can rush opponents. But today I felt like, I had to dig deep and just make balls and run and, not play my favorite, game, but, my plan B, let's say.
You've had some obviously great results on the clay, semifinals, Roland Garros. What are the things that when you're playing well on clay, you're doing well, not just tennis-wise, but mentally, your view on the game?
I feel like one thing that I worked a lot after Madrid, and something that I didn't do really well the last few years on the clay, was just to bring my margin a little bit more inside the court. I feel like I was trying to, go for too big of shots, in times where I shouldn't. It's what Iga said when she started with her new coach, that she wants to be that wall and that, very solid player. I feel like that's what I've been missing the last few years on the clay. Obviously, my version, but it's very similar to what she said. And that's what, I really have to buy into, and, I want to see myself playing that way.
Meanwhile, other players in the tournament were revealing truths that accidentally explained why Aya's rise might be arriving at the perfect moment. Maria Sakkari admitted something incredibly revealing after one of her wins. She said the conditions that day were almost the worst possible conditions for her own game. What clay? Heavy balls. Slow movement. Everything she normally dislikes. And instead of trying to overpower opponents the way she usually prefers, she had to completely change her mindset. She had to become patient, disciplined, controlled. She called it her Plan B. But then came the part that made tennis fans stop and think. Sakkari openly admitted she had been studying Iga Swiatek's philosophy on clay. Specifically the idea of becoming the wall. Not forcing spectacular shots. Not rushing winners. Just slowly suffocating opponents with consistency and pressure. That's not a small admission. Elite athletes almost never publicly reveal when they borrow another player's mental blueprint. Yet Sakkari did exactly that. And the reason this matters for Alex Eala is because modern women's tennis is clearly shifting. Power alone isn't enough anymore. Everyone hits hard now. The difference is emotional discipline, tactical patience, the ability to survive ugly matches without mentally collapsing. And somehow, despite her age, Aya already seems unusually comfortable inside chaos.
Lots of time, and you, as you said, have so much experience, so many great wins to be able to fall back on. You seem like you're in a great space right now. Where would you say your hunger is, your motivation, your passion?
I want to get back to where I was. I'm not a type of player. No disrespect to other players in the ranking. I'm not happy where I am right now. And that's my character. Like, even when I'm done with tennis, I don't like to do things, halfway. I like to be one of the best in what I do. And you know what? I might not achieve it. Who knows? But I'm going to try my best to, see myself again there. And, one thing that I have to keep reminding to myself is that what I have achieved in my life is pretty good enough. And that's what Tom has been telling me, just to keep it in the back of my mind, because sometimes I do forget what I've done.
Well, one of the many things we love about you is you've always been an all-in type of person. So we love that. Rome, the city, I know the Rome vibes are inspiring for you. You love this city.
I do. I like the food. I like when the weather is good. I like the conditions because it does play a little bit quicker. What's the hate about Rome,
What happened next made the tournament even more intriguing. Because while Sakkari was reinventing herself mentally, Elena Rybakina was quietly dismantling the tour in an entirely different way. Over the previous 6 months, she had beaten more top 10 players than almost any stretch of her career. But unlike louder stars who dominate headlines through emotion and theatrics, Rybakina operates differently. Quietly, coldly, efficiently. She almost never gives the media dramatic material to work with. And maybe that's why people underestimate how dangerous she really is. But during Rome, she revealed something that players almost never say publicly. She admitted that scheduling disadvantages matter, that playing a late semifinal before an early final creates a real competitive imbalance. No excuses, no complaining, just honesty. And that honesty revealed something important about the current generation rising in women's tennis. They're becoming more psychologically transparent, more self-aware, more willing to discuss the hidden realities of elite competition. Alex Eala fits perfectly into that evolution, because beneath the calm interviews and respectful answers is someone who seems deeply aware of exactly where she stands, exactly where she struggles, and exactly how quickly she's improving. And that combination can become terrifying over time.
Hi, congrats. I heard that you have your own private stringer. Is that right?
Yes.
So what is the benefit of having that private stringer?
Well, he doesn't work only with me, but also some other few players. But it definitely better when one person is stringing your racket. He also suggests some things which I can adapt depending on the condition, and also tracking how the rackets are actually, if I need to change something or not. So I think it's a great benefit to have someone in the team like this.
Elena, you've had more success in the last, I think, 6 months against the top 10 than you ever had before in your career. I wonder if you could explain that, if there's a reason for it, do you think? Is it your focus against the top players, or is it just the fact that you're playing maybe better than you ever have?
Then came a moment almost nobody noticed during a Rybakina interview that quietly revealed the mentality separating elite players from everyone else chasing them. An interviewer mistakenly claimed she had never lost a final against Aryna Sabalenka. Most athletes would have accepted the compliment. Some would have even enjoyed the psychological narrative. But Rybakina corrected him instantly, calmly, directly. She reminded everyone she had already lost to Sabalenka in Australia. It was such a tiny interaction that many viewers ignored it completely. But mentally, it revealed everything. Rybakina refused to build confidence on false narratives. She refused easy comfort. She refused fake psychological advantages. That level of clarity matters more than people realize, because the best competitors often protect themselves from emotional illusions better than everyone else. And strangely enough, Alex Eala seems to operate the same way. Even at only 20 years old, she doesn't appear obsessed with hype. She doesn't sound overwhelmed by attention. She doesn't carry herself like someone satisfied just being included in big tournaments. Instead, there's a strange steadiness to the way she talks about improvement. Almost like she already sees herself belonging among elite players long before the rankings fully confirm it.
Elena, congrats. Arena's held the #1 ranking now for long over a year, almost 80 weeks consecutively. I wonder what your thoughts are on that, how she's been able to dominate it. And now that you're at #2 in the world after this week, do you think you start to think about the chances that you might have down the road of becoming #1?
Well, it's a great achievement, of course, and to stay so long as #1, you need to be very consistent, and she showed great tennis for the past couple of years. So, of course, my goal is to get even higher in the ranking, to get this position as #1, but I know it's still a lot of work. It's all depends on the other players too, and yeah, definitely that's my biggest goal, next goal. So yeah, I will try to do it this year, and hopefully it happens.
How much of an advantage is it for you mentally knowing that you've never lost a final against Arena?
I actually didn't think about this statistic because I lost in Australia, so I think it was not this year, the previous, but well, it's as I always say, it's every day is different, every tournament is different, and you can play well one day and then the other day wake up and not feel the greatest. So I feel like you need to always try to find a way. We know each other's game very well, so it's a lot about physical, I would say, also, because here the ball is heavy, the rallies are a little bit longer than on the other hard courts, which are a little bit quicker. So it's going to be a difficult match where we both gonna try to serve well, that's for sure, put pressure, and we will see what's gonna happen.
And this is where the story became bigger than tennis, because entire nations now emotionally invest themselves into these young stars. Every win becomes national celebration. Every loss becomes collective heartbreak. The pressure can become overwhelming incredibly fast. But Aya said something during Rome that revealed an emotional maturity most athletes spend years trying to develop. She explained that ultimately, she owes success to herself first. Not the internet, not expectations, not even the country watching her. Herself. That psychological boundary is incredibly important because many young stars collapse under the weight of external identity. They start playing for approval instead of purpose. But Aya sounded grounded in something internal, something personal. And ironically, that mindset mirrors Rybakina almost perfectly. Quiet competitors, internally driven, uninterested in noise. Maybe that's why their matchup dynamics felt so much closer than many predicted. Because beneath the rankings and experience gaps, there was a similar emotional architecture. Two players trying to solve pressure privately rather than publicly performing confidence for cameras.
What she said, and that's what I really have to buy into, and I want to see myself playing that way.
Speaking of Iga, that was one of your great wins this year. You played brilliant in Doha, making the semifinals over there. What are some of the things you've thought you've done very well this year in 26, and a few things you'd like to continue to get better?
Obviously, I want to improve that consistency. I want to have tournaments like, I never had, maybe the flashy results like win tournaments back to back. But I always, when I was top 10 for 4 years, I had very consistent, semifinals, finals, semifinals. That's what I want to see myself doing again. And then eventually win the tournaments. Obviously, starting the season, United Cup with 2 very good wins. Then with Iga and making the semis again after almost 2 years. It was something that I really, really missed. But then I feel like I know I'm 30 years old, but sometimes I feel like I'm a junior in that mindset that
30 is young.
yeah,
30
it is young, but sometimes I don't use my experience that, just to lower the expectations when I have to. But you know what? I still have time. As you said, 30 is young, so we'll see.
Behind the scenes, the margins separating elite tennis players are becoming almost invisible. Tiny adjustments now change entire matches. And one revelation about Rybakina shocked many fans who had never heard it before. She travels with her own private stringer. Not a tournament technician, her own trusted specialist. Every racket gets adjusted daily depending on humidity, temperature, court speed, and conditions. That level of detail sounds obsessive until you realize how fast professional tennis actually moves. Millimeters change timing. Tension changes trajectory. One subtle adjustment can completely alter how heavy the ball feels coming off the strings. And suddenly her dominance in certain conditions starts making more sense. But the really fascinating part is how players like Alex Eala are entering this environment incredibly early. She's learning these professional details now. Learning how elite preparation works now. Learning how top players think now. Most young prospects don't gain that exposure until much later in their development. Aya is getting it in real time against the best players on earth. And that acceleration could change everything over the next few years.
Well, I think it's all together. I think that I was always playing against top players well. Maybe the statistic is not the same, and I was losing these tough matches a bit more before, but I think with the years, with experience, I'm getting this consistency, so hopefully I can just keep on going. And also you get to know the players much more, so you play against the same player multiple times, so you know what to expect. So I think it's all together.
So what are you going to do between now and the final to recover and prepare to get the best performance on Sunday?
We're still gonna do some work on the court, but definitely I will try to rest and be as fresh as possible. It's a bit tricky also to play late matches, then you need to wake up for the early match. Even if it's at 11, you're still like waking up many more hours in advance, so it's a bit challenging, but we will see what we can do, and hopefully I can be prepared well.
But perhaps the biggest reason Rome felt so important had nothing to do with rankings or trophies. It was the feeling surrounding Alex Eala every time she stepped on court. You could sense opponents becoming uncomfortable with how fearless she looked during difficult moments. Not reckless, fearless. There's a difference. Reckless players swing wildly under pressure. Fearless players stay emotionally present while chaos builds around them. And during several key moments in Rome, Aya looked strangely calm while more experienced players visibly tightened up. That's not normal for someone still this early in her professional career. Which raises the question nobody can fully answer yet. What happens when she gains even more experience? What happens when the physical game catches up completely to the mental confidence? What happens when the surface that currently feels uncomfortable eventually becomes natural? Because if this was already enough to make established teams nervous, then the version of Alex Eala that arrives 2 or 3 years from now might become something women's tennis isn't fully prepared for yet.